Thank you, Steve, for coming today and taking the time to be part of this individual trustee forum. The first question we have for you today is, why are you interested in running for a Calgary Catholic School trustee, and what motivates you to serve as a trustee?
That's a good question. I've already benefited from the Catholic education system. My youngest son just graduated from Our Lady of the Rockies. And it provided him with a lot of caring teachers and what I believe to be a safe environment. And as a former police officer, having safety is probably one of my primary concerns, particularly in these tumultuous times. So I don't really, but my concern is that caring going to continue for the next group of kids that are coming to school? And I think over the last little while, I've seen an emergence of self-interest groups that seem to be trying to divide parents from kids, trying to divide and maybe shake up our system, and basically use kids as their pawns to promote a message. And I'm very concerned about that. And what I believe is that we need people who are going to stand up, fearlessly, vigilantly, and say, no, this is the line. This is a line, no one's crossing this line, and we need people in that position. And I believe I have that background and those skills to bring that type of advocacy to the school board.
Thank you. The next question I have is, what skills do you bring to the role of trustee that will help strengthen the governance of the Calgary Catholic School Board?
Well, like I said, there's a couple of issues right now, and one of them, of course, is safety. I was a former Calgary police officer, so I'm used to running into places that other people are running from. Right. And I think that's important. I think as a school board, what we're looking for is a team. What we're looking for is people who are bringing their own set of skills to complement each other, not duplicate each other. So I believe I'm fairly unique in the group that's running in terms of my background, of being a former cop, understanding that the risks that affect children. A large part of my career was dealing with youth at risk. I worked on, trying to oppose youth gangs that were coming into Calgary, and is still happening. And started to devise plans where we could bring parents and the church and the community and the schools together to try to offer solutions and alternatives for kids at risk. Since then, I've been very involved politically. I've worked on over 40 political campaigns in the last 25 years. And funding is probably the second most important issue that we have to deal with right now. Calgary's experiencing growth. We've seen a funding deficit over the last two budgets. That's not sustainable. So we need people who can communicate effectively with other levels of government. I know many of the MLAs. I just had a conversation with the Minister of Education because I worked on one of his campaigns. So I built those relationships with people. So if nothing else, they can put a face to a name immediately, and we can start having a more intense, or at least more profitable dialogue as to what's needed. They know who I am. I know what their positions are. And I think we can move things forward a lot faster having that background.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned about funding, and I think that goes into this next question as well. What do you see as the biggest challenges Catholic schools in Alberta will face in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, certainly funding is going to be critical, making sure that we have the funding on hand. We're running a 3-year rolling average right now in terms of a funding model, which doesn't allow for 2,000 more students coming into the system last September. And creating a $23 million hole in the budget that has to come out of reserves. Now, granted, it catches up, but I think we owe our teachers, we owe our staff some certainty that they're going to get paid, that the money is going to be there for projects and programs and salaries and all the things, and that's ultimately the job of the trustee. So being able to ensure that that's done ahead of time and that's advance in the budget is, I think, critical. Probably one of the other biggest issues is just this problem we have in society right now that is focusing on diversity, that is focusing on single issue agendas. And it's certainly a major issue within the public school system. We're starting to see it, in fact, at all levels. And while we've been somewhat protected, I think, within the Calgary Catholic system, Alberta is only one of 3 provinces left that actually has publicly funded faith-based education. Most jurisdictions have seen that go by the wayside, and it's been called by the United Nations alone. They've come out and said that this is somewhat discriminatory. They accused Canada 20 years ago and said this is against our rules of proper etiquette. And I'm going, no, it isn't. We need to provide our children with not only high quality education, but also some sense of purpose and some sense of stability, particularly as they're going through all the other things that happen in their life. We can't protect what happens with kids outside the school. We can't necessarily protect them with what's going on in their homes, what's going on in their communities, but we can, while you are on our property, while you are at school, here's what to expect. That you're going to have a safe, secure environment to learn, that you're going to have teachers that care about you particularly in terms of your growth, and that we are going to make sure that all these distractions are removed. And faith-based education does that. I mean, we have a proven model, within the Diocese of Calgary, with the bishop, with, Pope Francis. These are things that have been in place for hundreds of years. And we as Catholics accept it. We as Catholics believe that this is our certainty, that this is our way of life. And we need to impress upon our kids that this is here for you and encourage them. I was talking with Father Paul from St. Cecilia, which is my parish. And, he goes to the schools that within the parish and says, I have no problem inviting kids to church on Sunday, and bring your parents. And I think that's great. I think that's great that we have the clergy within our school districts that are active and at the schools and encouraging students to look beyond just what's happening within algebra or social studies, because it creates context. So I think that's a huge issue over the next forever, that we have to get back to those basic qualities of education, and we have to get back to those moral and sensible processes of just etiquette and behavior. Catholic, right now, Catholic, we're only about 1/3, maybe less than 1/3 of the student population. So, I mean, we're seeing growth. I think we're seeing a lot of people looking at the Catholic education system as an alternative to both public school and to charter and private school systems, because they want to have something that is certain. So managing that growth will probably be another major problem, because we don't know from year to year how the city's going to grow. We don't know what kind of input. So we got to be able to talk well to city council. We got to be able to talk well to our provincial elected officials as to what does the growth strategy look like.
So you mentioned about the single agenda issues, and you talked about that in that first question, like the concern about. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more? What that is or what that looks like?
Well, I mean, we have obviously gender identity, is becoming the common talking point. In fact, we just saw Danielle Smith come out with bills to prevent any type of gender reassignment for children under the age of 18. Yeah. But why are we having that conversation within a Catholic school environment? That's not really the job of the school to deal with that. I mean, there's so many other alternatives where that information is available. At school, we need to be focused on education. And, we're starting to see a bit of a slip. I mean, it used to be that education, that the Catholic education was always scoring higher, particularly in standardized testing. We had smaller classrooms, we have smaller schools. We probably have, we have some of the best teachers, I think, in the education system. So part of that is that we need to focus on that. And, sexualization of our youth is a non-starter. within the Catholic Church. Gender identity is really a non-starter. This whole concept of diversity. I mean, we are created in God's image as one person, as one. I think we're focusing far too much on what divides us. And we're not concentrating on what brings us together. And I think that is probably one of the greatest benefits that the church brings to us is unity, not diversity. And we need a school board at the trustee level that these are the things that we believe in, and these are the things that we're going to stand for against all opposition. And sometimes we have to stand against other politicians. We've seen in city council over the last 4 years a major shift in terms of diversity, a major shift in terms of wokeism that really has no place within a faith-based education system that we subscribe to.
Thank you. You've kind of answered this partially, but how do you propose to address these challenges? So is there other ways you'd look at addressing them, or you talked about the budget, you talked about you personally being on the board. How would you address it? You talked about your relationship with the officials.
Well, I mean, first off, here is our budget. I mean, I've gone over budgets at the city level and the provincial level for the last 15 years. I've made presentations to the Minister of Finance. I've made presentations to City Council on how we can start to clean up, some of our budget issues. As a former police officer, I was actually part of our budgeting process every year with the chief at the time. Presenting that to Police Commission. So I understand how these budgets can work. And, if you've ever looked at a city budget or the provincial budget, it's 800 pages of numbers that don't seem to make any sense. About 10, 15 years ago, Marcel Latouche and I wrote a book called Take Back City Hall, and a lot of it dealt with how do we focus around the budget? How do we educate people on what the budget means? And how do we escape some of the fear tactics? If we cut the budget, we have to get rid of 100 police officers. Well, that's not true. I mean, the truth is it's all about setting priorities. And if we can set those priorities as a board, then that will filter down. But we can only do that by making sure that we actually go out and talk to teachers, and we actually get to talk and get that input from the school system, from the parents. As an elected trustee, I represent and advocate for the people who elected me, for the families that are using the Catholic school system. I'm not there to represent the school system or the government back to them. I need to take their message, their priorities, and make that part of the school trustee platform. So we need to make very clear on what it is. We make sure that we're making very good financial decisions. Then we have to make sure that that money, which is collected by our taxpayers, is allocated to us in a timely fashion. And we get that through dialogue. We get that through commitment. I mean, I know that Demetrius and Premier Smith, and they all care. I mean, Premier Smith just came out with a very ambitious education package for new schools, which is awesome. It doesn't help us today. But ensuring that we have the proper portables, that we have the proper expansion model, that we are understanding the needs of the community. If we can do that, I think we can start to address a lot of the economic issues going forward. Alberta is a very prosperous place, and I think we need to ensure that that prosperity is passed on to the generation which will make those prosperity decisions 15, 20 years from now. These are the people who are going to select where my senior homes. So I want to make sure they're well informed and that they care. I guess secondly, I mean, coming up when I was 15, I mean, I came from a broken home. I'd been to 12 schools by the time I hit grade 10 in 5 provinces and 9 different cities across Canada. So incredibly unstable upbringing. And I was certainly on the verge. I mean, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. And there was one teacher, Jim Shields, who was my music teacher in grade 11. And he reconnected me. He cared about me as a kid, as an individual, and focused some attention that said, here's what he was part of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. He reconnected me with St. Cecilia Church. He reconnected me with the things that I needed to get connected with. Well, I want to make sure that every kid within the Catholic school system has that opportunity. If they are running into a crisis, I want to make sure that those resources are available to them, because it made a massive difference in me. You know, I went on, became a police officer, I went to university, got my master's degree. I mean, that one instance of care really changed the trajectory of my life.
Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing your views today. And do you have any closing remarks which you'd like to share?
I think for the Calgary families that are concerned about their kids and concerned about their future, I mean, they need to get out and be a participant in the conversation. I think my job as school trustee is to ensure that conversation happens. I mean, I've knocked on 300,000 doors in the campaigns I've worked in the last 20 years, and I'm quite willing to knock on every single door of the 80,000 homes that were within my district. I'm going to have events. I'm going to be at open houses. We're going to do stuff online, and I'm going to make sure that everybody is informed about what's going on and where we stand. There will be no excuse for the message isn't getting out. That is one of the priorities that I will be bringing as kind of a communication expert. The other big thing is I think people need to count on their school trustee to make sure that the money's in place and the values that we believe in are solidly in place. There's a line in the movie Yellowstone, or the show Yellowstone, that says, "I'm not here for progress. I'm the wall that progress bangs against, and I will not falter." And I think that's a great premise. I think that's what we need to have at the school trustee. I think when you're looking to elect somebody, you should be looking at their skills as how are they different from the other candidates, and how do they mash up within a team environment. And that's what I want to bring to this, is those unique skills from my 15 years as a police officer, my political experience, and bring that to the board so that we can work as a team to ensure that those issues that we all agree are happening are not going to be a problem for kids next year, the year after, 5 years from now. I think it's important.
Thank you very much again for your time today.
Well, thank you.
And good luck as you move forward.
Appreciate it.